Hello, this is Jason Danitz, also known as Nerdatron, from the Nerds of Babylon, and you're listening to the Southsider Studios podcasting system. For more great podcast programming, visit southsiderstudios.com or search Southsider Studios on iTunes.
Cinesmack contains spoilers of the spoiling type. If you don't want your spoilers spoiled, please turn back now. Otherwise, enjoy the show!
Hey gang, welcome back to Cinesmack. This is Mike, and I am joined by Mark Johnson.
Hello, everybody.
Tom Haggis.
I've had 3 showers since I watched Crumb, and I watched it this morning.
Gabriel Rollwald.
I would really like a piggyback ride.
That's kind of creepy, but I'll give you one.
Oh, nice.
I just took a shower. I'd do it.
Even better. You've got a nice rear shelf.
Oh, wow.
And our very special guest, Andrew Zumwalt from Arizona Ink Studios. Welcome, Andrew.
Hello.
Andrew is a independent film. He owns an independent film studio here in Des Moines, and I want to say congratulations to you, to Gabe, and to Mark, and a little pat on the back for myself for this past 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
2 weeks ago, 48-hour film projects that we actually turned in on time.
Yeah.
Yay.
That's very important.
And I'd say you guys did a great job.
Yay, punctuality.
Extreme punctuality.
You guys did a really good
Extreme
job.
punctuality.
And congratulations, Tom, on your 3 showers. Sorry.
It was fun. I got the heart rate up. Good stuff.
Good stuff. So, yeah, well, it's kind of awkward in here. I've got to preface this. I have Andrew that was planning on coming over and recording in the studio, and then Mark calls me with 10 minutes before we're going to record and says, I have no internet. So he's in here with me as well. So if things sound kind of off, I apologize. But,
I blame MediaCom.
There you go.
It's all their fault.
Blame MediaCom. Let's go ahead and kick this off right. Here we go. Oh, and just ignore what someone says in here. I might cough over it, so just ignore it.
Ladies and gentlemen, introverts and extroverts, welcome to bout number 8, Cinesmack. Tonight, it's a battle of underground comic titans. In the first corner, released in 1994, directed by Terry Zwigoff, starring Robert Crumb, Elaine Kaminsky, and Charles Crumb. Crumb! In the second corner, released in 2003, directed by Sherry Springer Berman and Robert Pulcini, starring Paul Giamatti, Hope Davis, and Harvey Picard, American Splendor!
All right, there we go. I wrote down the wrong script for the monkey, so he actually said it he said fight number 8 instead of fight number 9. So this is fight number 9. You're not hearing it wrong. I was wrong. So don't all of you ridicule me at once, please. Stop it.
Why are you so
It's
full of
embarrassing.
self-loathing
You suck.
tonight,
I
Mike?
can't
It's
stand it.
embarrassing.
I'm doing it in my head.
Thanks. Thank you. You guys are the most polite smack talkers I've ever dealt with. I just want to point that out. Everyone's just quiet, and they just wait their turn. I want Andrew and Mark to come to
this
fists.
podcast
Oh,
is
no.
this podcast is like the waiting room of a sperm clinic. I'm just dreading this. I know it has to be done. I know that there'll be moments of enjoyment, but for the most part, I'm dreading it.
Is it the shame afterwards when you walk out and everyone's just kind of staring
Three
at you?
showers, yes. Shame.
Well, before we get started, I want everyone to know that I've had a vasectomy. So I just want to get that out of the way to get this started with. So.
All right. Well, on that note,
Reversing.
let's let's go to our first category, which is writing. And we will let Tom start it off.
Writing was one of those categories that I was a little worried about when we paired these two up, because comparing a largely dramatic film with a documentary is tough, because really when you're talking about a documentary, the editor really serves as the writer. The editor is the one who, working with the director, of course, is the one that goes through and cherry picks the words to build the story. Especially one like Crumb that was shot over 6 years. They really didn't know in what direction it was heading when they started. That being said, I thought that the writing for American Splendor was as real and honest as just about any movie I think that's come out in the last 10 years. And as much as I liked Crumb, it seemed a little scattershot. And later on, when we get into overall, I want to talk, about, Crumb and its effects on reality TV, blah, 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 blah. But I think that there's, I almost felt like that American Splendor was more real than Crumb was. And I know that I'm going to get hate mail for that and everything else, but I'll get to that later when we get to the overall section. But I'm going to give my vote for this one to American Splendor, based mostly, I think, because I was able to make more of an emotional connection to American Splendor than I was to Crumb. For some reason, I kept Crumb at an arm's length almost the entire time. Mm-hmm. With the exception of maybe the scenes with his son and his daughter, when I was able to actually see a little bit, I guess, of myself in Crumb. So my vote for this round goes to American Splendor.
All right. We'll go with In the Studio. We'll go with Mark.
Oh, great. Well, I just want to say that I kept Crumb at arm's length because I didn't want to get hepatitis C. That's just that's where I'm coming from. I'm going to go... I lean heavily towards American Splendor as well. Tom talks about the editing being, sort of the writing in Crumb. And I feel like it kind of bugged me sometimes when he would just say, like when he was talking to those kids, he's like, well, I'm most famous for this, and I'm, second most famous for this, or whatever words he was using. And rather than explaining why he was famous for those things or explain what those comic books were about, they mostly left it at that. I mean, they did touch on some of his comics later in the film, but hearing an introvert describe himself isn't very interesting. It doesn't come off very well. And I felt like just, the screenplay, like a normal, quote-unquote, normal movie, is a better way to tell a story and to explain a character. Although I did like... What I liked about Crumb are the interviews with the people around Crumb, like the ex-wives and the ex-girlfriends. I feel like their description of Crumb... they were the great storytellers in the movie. Crumb wasn't that interesting. I mean, he was interesting in the fact that he was this, doodle master, but it was
in more ways than one.
Yes. Oh, yes. But it was the people around him who I felt helped tell his story best, and I probably could use some more of that in Crumb. So my vote's going to go to American Splendor.
All right. Let's go to our newbie in the studio, Andrew.
Well, I'll start with Crumb. I definitely have to agree with saying that most of the interesting parts of Crumb were the people around him. I really picked up on that just because his friends, the people that actually talked about him, I think saw him in a different light than he even saw himself. And I think that really portrayed him more real than himself. And I mean, again, it's a documentary, so you're just going to get what you're going to get. And I realize you can't script everything. You can't even, really, you can feed a little bit when you do questioning, but I mean, there's only so much you can do because people are people, and that's kind of how it is. But I definitely agree with it's the people around him that made that story somewhat interesting. However, out of American Splendor, I felt that movie was more of a documentary actually than Crumb itself. It felt more real. It felt more of an actual story about the person, and I think you got to know Harvey as a person better than you got to. I mean, in Crumb, you're like, okay, this guy's weird. He's whatever, and you kind of know his life. But I think in American Splendor, the way they wrote it really put across, who Harvey was. You really felt his life. You felt his ups, his downs, and you really had a better understanding of who he was as a person. And I know a lot of stuff is fictionalized, and I know that happens in movies, but I felt that it was a closer representation and almost a better documentary look at somebody's life than the documentary that was just a straight documentary. So I have to go with American Splendor too.
All right. And last but not least, Gabe.
Yeah. Well,
that's nice, Gabe. Moving on to
we're going to have this kind of. We're going to have this kind of issue with a lot of the categories tonight, being that we're comparing a documentary to kind of more of a film, a slightly more fictionalized type film. But as far as writing is concerned, sometimes in real life you say to yourself, man, I could never write anything that crazy. And I could never think of anything like that. It could never really be that insane. And I think Crumb fits that. You could never write that. You would never believe it if you saw it.
No.
And actually, the interesting crossover between these two movies, obviously, is the fact that Harvey Picar and Crumb were actually friends, and Crumb actually illustrated some of Picar's stories. And there's a portion in American Splendor where they show Crumb meeting fans, and then he jumps on some girl's back and she gives him a piggyback ride. and at that time, I turned to Mike and I said, if I hadn't watched Crumb first, and if I didn't know he really did that, I would have thought that was way over the top. I would have thought, no way, that's ridiculous. But since we happened to watch Crumb first, and I knew that we saw him actually doing that in real life. At that point, I was like, wow, that kind of validated the accuracy of American Splendor to me. And it made me feel like maybe American Splendor, while maybe partially fictionalized, wasn't overly exaggerated. And I think in the end, I mean, you can't write the stuff that you see in Crumb, and it's really disturbingly interesting. It's like, it's like a car crash. You have to look, But I think as far as writing is concerned, American Splendor does a splendid job, and I think my vote goes with American Splendor as well.
All right. I just have to say I came home after watching it at your house, tried getting a piggyback ride from Amanda, and she wants you all to know that she is feeling fine, and she's supposed to be released from the hospital in a couple days.
Nice, that's good. So it went well.
It did go well. I had a great time. I can't say the same for her.
While it lasted.
Yeah. As Tom mentioned, Crumb was actually filmed over a period of 6 years, and I just can't even fathom working on something, with someone for that long, especially, I don't know, I guess kind of out there and from my viewpoint, and maybe the director is out there as well, so it's normal to him, but during his years-long money-starved struggle to make the documentary, the director, Terry Zwigoff, I always have problems saying his name, was laid up in bed with crippling back pain and was suicidally depressed. He actually stated at one point that he kept a revolver under his pillow because he hurt so bad, but he never got the guts to actually use it. And on a lighter note, Rob Schneider and Leonardo DiCaprio were once considered for the roles in American Splendor. I can't find anything on the writing. There's nothing good for the writing. So,
Rob Schneider and who?
Leo DiCaprio.
Okay, well, Leo may have been able to pull it off, but I think Paul. this goes into the acting category. I suppose I'll stop. But
all right,
Paul Giamatti was perfect.
Yeah, I have to agree. Here we go. All right, we'll go into acting. Wait, here we go. Let me give it the bell. Ring the bell, monkey. All right, so that comes to acting. Let's start it off with Gabe since he went last.
Okay, and since
That's nice, Gabe.
Prematurely got into that topic.
All right, Andrew, your turn.
And again, and again, it's kind of odd to kind of judge the acting in a documentary. So it's really it's a difficult thing to kind of decide on. And again, man, you just could not create these characters. These are the kinds of characters only real life could create for you. Mm-hmm. They're just so in Crumb. They're just so complicated and so messed up. It's just amazing to me. I don't know how people get that messed up. I mean, he and his brothers. I mean, Crumb was strange, but his brothers were even worse. I mean, I don't know. But as far as American Splendor is concerned, I think Paul Giamatti was the perfect choice. I mean, he kind of looked like Harvey Picar. He really did a good job of taking on Harvey Picar's kind of mannerisms and kind of posture. And I really thought he embodied that character really well. I think even if we don't talk about any of the other actors in American Splendor, I think it gets my vote because Paul Giamatti is really a master. He's really excellent.
All right, Andrew.
Again, with your documentary, you're right. You can't really judge an acting per se. However, I mean, everyone talks about those being watched. Their demeanor and who they are changed. So, I mean, you have to give that there's a bit of a bias. There's got to be some little bit of enough that, probably Crumb, knowing what we know about Crumb, there was probably a little overacting per se. Yeah. I mean, he's on camera. And he didn't seem like a vain person, but I don't care who you are. It still changes you. What I think is the most exciting about it is his friends and his family and the people that were around him. There were a handful of just normal people that for some strange reason got involved in his life. And then there were the people that you were like, I think are about as nuts as he is. And what's sad about all of that is I think everybody has those kind of friends. And I think everybody has that one person that you're like, oh, what? Are you pointing at me?
You guys couldn't see it, but I was pointing at Mark.
But I mean, everybody has that friend that you're just like, I don't think I could ever be that insane. And you have those other friends that, you kind of associate with. And then you have the ones that are in that group that, I'm sure they look in at you and go, what is... So I think that your documentary really pulls that across, and that's where you can really judge that acting per se, is that you really can relate, even though these guys are completely off the wall, and some of them are just unbelievable, can't write this, but I think everybody has those friends to a certain degree. As to American Splendor, Paul Giamatti is probably one of the most amazing character actors, especially just seeing Picar at the beginning and having him in there and then jumping to Paul Giamatti and you going, wait, was that? No, that wasn't him. But he just did a fantastic job of really becoming and metamorphosizing himself into Harvey. I mean, Paul Giamatti has always been on one of my top lists for, great actors when it comes to character acting. I mean, you look at Dustin Hoffman, and he's fantastic at character acting. He can watch people and just mimic them. And he did an outstanding job in that. And I think Gabe really touched on it just with he really mastered his isms, his posture, even down to his weird crackling voice that he went in and out. I mean, he nailed that. And that would not be an easy thing he had to practice that. That's not an easy thing to pull up.
Right.
So.
It's the look. Like the look that he would give people was priceless.
And he had that, he even had the downward brow when he was on the Letterman show, and he had like the downward brow and that kind of, I'm kind of cocky, but I'm not. And I mean, he really became that person, and it was pretty amazing. So if you haven't guessed, I'm still going with American Splendor, but I do have to say that, the pseudo acting, whatever you want to call it for the documentary, everybody has those friends. You can't dismiss that. Everybody has that guy.
Yeah, I guess I'd like to give a nod to the guy who played his friend, too. The guy, the weird guy that gave him the jelly beans.
Oh,
Yes.
I think his name was Toby. Is
Yes.
that right?
Yep.
I have to give a nod to that guy too because he did a good job of embodying that guy's mannerisms too,
Yeah.
and his form of speech. He really did a good job with that.
Now listen here, Gabe.
That's not bad. That's pretty good.
Thanks.
I have to drive 2 hours to see Revenge of the Nerds.
What
feel like
was
this film
that?
best represents me
What
in
was
film.
that?
All right. Mark, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, like I was saying before, I mean, Crumb was, an introvert describing himself in a film, which is very interesting. And I don't feel like the people around him had enough presence in a documentary, which is hard to do just from the get go. I mean, you're already at a disadvantage because everyone's quote unquote trying to be natural. And but at the very beginning of American Splendor, you see Paul Giamatti, and he's lost his voice. It's nearly gone, and he's about to lose it if he pushes it any farther. And he comes home, and his wife leaves him, and she's going out the door, and he can't talk. And if he does talk, he risks of further losing his voice for good. And from that scene on, I was in Paul Giamatti's corner. I mean, and I don't know if a lot of other actors can pull that off. So, like everyone was saying before me, Giamatti's great. Judah Friedlander as Toby, I thought was really good as well. I think Judah Friedlander makes interesting choices in acting when he's not his normal world champion hat wearing guy. He takes on interesting roles like that and sort of loses himself. So, I mean, I liked his performance, and I liked the actress who played his wife. She had the unenviable task of just sort of being dropped, midway through the film, and I feel like dropped in halfway through the film, and she does a good job. She's very believable as someone who would be attracted to Harvey. So my vote for acting is going to go to American Splendor.
All right.
She definitely hit the ground running.
Oh yeah.
I mean, you could tell that it wasn't just we need somebody to play it. I mean, she slid in really well.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interject.
Oh,
No,
no,
you're
no,
you're fine.
That in there, but I agree.
Just smack Mark around too while you're at it.
And and I know it's not my turn anymore, but Gabe, I did.
How dare you?
I know.
I'm
just
getting
thought
the
of
gun.
something. Gabe, I did think of something when you had mentioned that the actual fact that they had Crumb in American Splendor. Yes, I think that actor had some connection per se to the Crumb character, but after watching the documentary and then seeing him in the movie, I was like, I don't think they picked a very good look-wise. He wasn't great, but there were some isms that he picked up. But I was like, they could have just asked Crumb to do it.
Right. No, and I agree. I think he did a decent job, but maybe not an excellent job of kind of imitating Crumb.
Yeah, and if I wouldn't have seen it first, I probably would have never even thought twice about it. But because I watched Crumb first, and then American Splendor, I think it swayed my. Okay, I'll shut up now.
All right, Tom, go ahead.
I think somebody threw out the phrase quasi acting in Crumb, and what I think drove me the nuts about Crumb the most is this idea that if something is popular, then it sucks, and this need to be contrarian about everything, and it works both ways. Just because something is popular doesn't mean it sucks, and just because nobody went and saw a movie that came out last weekend doesn't mean that it's not the best movie ever. I mean, it's something that movies deal with all the time. The 10 Oscar nominees are among the lowest, box office wise of the year. It seems. It's something that happens to like Apple computers and Lady Gaga. They become really, really popular. And everybody's like, well, it sucks without offering any rationale whatsoever. And Crumb was doing that through the entire thing, and it drove me absolutely nuts. Like, there hasn't been a good movie since 1940. And he does this really great graphic for Keep on Truckin'. Oh, look, that became popular, and it sucked. And Fritz the Cat became popular. Oh, that sucks. And and I'm pretty sure he thought the documentary sucked. If I had read somewhere that he wasn't really even that keen with the documentary because it became so popular. And it's this it's this pet peeve of mine of these people that just feel that, by being, anti-popularism is the best way to be cool, and it's the easiest, cheapest way to try and raise yourself. That somehow you're better than everybody else because you think what they like it sucks, and it drove me up a wall, especially when he started bashing his own stuff, and I was watching it going into it, going, how am I going to judge the acting? And I'm like, oh, he's acting because he's one of the most phony people up there. Maybe, possibly, he's really like that in real life. And if that's the case, the guy's kind of a douchebag. But
kind of.
But I in my experience with people like this that instantly hate something that's popular, then by all means, I think he was definitely acting, and he was. I didn't think it was that convincing because, I really did not like him as a person. I don't think I'd like hanging out with him, and nothing could be taken away from his talent. He's a very talented artist, but I'm not going to sit around and watch him draw. The acting in American Splendor, on the other hand, Hope Davis was really, really great as Joyce, and of course Paul Giamatti. I mean, everything's been said about American Splendor, so I kind of took it and decided to talk about the douchebaggery in Crumb. And one of the things I think with Paul Giamatti's work that we forget when we go back and watch this is that his roles up to this point were not leading roles. He had done a lot of supporting work. He was a character actor, and you saw him in Truman Show and stuff like that in the background. And this was his first real big leading role. And we all know now what a genius Paul Giamatti is, because since then, he did Sideways and The Illusionist. And, of course, I think his best work, John Adams, just blew me away, his work in that. So going back and looking at Paul Giamatti, we're like, oh, yeah, it's Paul Giamatti. Of course he's a genius. But at the time, I don't think people realized, what a great actor he was. And sometimes we often forget that now that, that's the very beginning of his leading role canon. So, geez, I don't know, Paul Giamatti or the douchebag. I'm going to give it to American Splendor.
I have to agree with you, Tom. That was driving me crazy. Like, just anything that he would, oh, and that sucks. And this sucks now. And, oh, people like this,
exactly.
So it sucks. Yeah, that was driving me crazy.
Well, and
sorry.
I was just going to say, and I mean, they even brought up one of the interviewees. They talked to him when they offered him a deal somebody wanted him to do a cover for Rolling Stone, and he was like, oh, and he turned that down because he didn't care. Yeah. I think he turned it down because he was like, no, that's dumb. I think he thought he was better than that.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's really how it came across, and he tried to be like, oh, well, he doesn't need the money or the fame. And I really think it was just because he thought that was dumb, and he was better than doing covers for Rolling Stone or, the Rolling Stones or whoever, I mean, and that's how I took that.
Right. Well, and then there's the part where the guy in the comic book store asks him for his autograph.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. No.
And he's kind of a douche about that too. I'm like, really? Like, maybe you don't believe in autographs, but the people who are your fans do, maybe, and
right.
It doesn't hurt that much to give them a little autograph. Because he was like, oh no, I don't believe in that. And
but yet,
totally blew that guy off.
But yet, he goes to that stupid cafe, and he says that he gets recognized by tons and tons of people, and he will sign autographs and talk to them and let them buy him coffee and stuff, and he doesn't have a problem there doing it.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm good. I mean, I'm really like keep going back. I'm going to try and hold on to this until we get to the overall category. But
I'm sorry.
No. This is me. I have this thing I want to talk about Crumb and relationship to reality TV today. But I got to ask myself, how much of this crap would he say, and would he do if the cameras were off?
Right.
Right.
And that's my point.
He denied that comic book clerk an autograph because the camera was rolling, and he thought quickly in his head, if I say no to this guy, this is going to save me like 10,000 autographs later on.
Yeah, that's true.
People just stop approaching me, and it's like, well, then at that point you lose the concept of documentary at that point, because now the guy is no longer real. He's just what he wants to be in front of a camera. To be continued in the overall category.
Right.
Which again is the reason why when you shoot a documentary, you're acting. I mean, there's only so much you can really say is real, because people change in front of a camera. I don't care who you are. I don't care how real you think you are. it happens.
Yep, it does change.
That's why I shoot all my documentaries with air quotes from the bushes in front of people's houses.
Holes in the wall, spy cams.
All hidden camera.
I don't know how to follow that up. According to this, media reports following the film said that Robert Crumb later told Terry Zwigoff that he hated the film. According to Zwigoff, however, this never happened, and the two still speak on a regular basis. The jacket that Paul Giamatti wears for Harvey's first Late Night with David Letterman appearance is the exact same piece of clothing that we see the real Harvey Pekar wearing on the TV. So Harvey Pekar still had that actual jacket.
That's awesome.
And Paul Giamatti was able to wear it. So, all right, hold on. Got to poke the monkey. All right, let's head on over to directing, round 3. And we'll go ahead. We'll change it up. Let's go to Andrew.
Oh, I'm starting now?
Yeah.
Oh, crap. Again, really difficult because with a mockumentary, we've already gone down that slope. It's a teaser for my overall. Sorry. For a documentary, it's really hard to look at directing because, again, there is a formula. You're doing interviews. There are certain things you set your camera up.
Mm-hmm.
You try to capture certain events in their life, but I mean, really, it's kind of more of a guerrilla shoot than you can possibly ever think of because you just have to go with whatever's happening around you, and you move the camera quickly or you do whatever, and a lot of times the interviewee doesn't even know what's going to happen, and there's not any shots in Crumb that I went, wow, that was a really amazing shot, or I really could see how, so-and-so was trying to get such and such feeling across, by putting that camera in that angle and making sure that they did this, or, I mean, there was nothing, it was, watching a PBS special. I mean, it was what it was. Now, the directing, of course, on American Splendor, I mean, I think the cinematography helped tell the story, and I think when that was really coming into play, she really pushed those angles. She really pushed how those interactions. Mark mentioned earlier when he was yelling, and he had just a tiny little squeak as she was running out. That entire sequence is just beautifully done. And you really feel like you're sitting in that room. And when he does that final, you can tell that he's yelling, but nothing's coming out. And she runs right past the camera, and you can just tell this weird obscurity that's going on. And it was just brilliant. I mean, and you really felt that pain for him, but at the same time, you're like, what is going on? I'm like almost just lost at the same time. It was just fantastic. And I mean, I would say that when you have good actors on set, that it's easier to direct. Again, we can go back and we can reprise everything we've said about people like Paul Giamatti and stuff. I mean, I think when you have people on set that are good actors, it really helps to direct them and say, hey, do this, and they can just pull that off. And I think that really helps. I know. I think it's been the reoccurring theme. However, my vote still goes to American Splendor on directing.
All right.
I mean, you can tell she has a style and she has a way of doing it, and I think it really came across. But
okay, right on.
I'm done at the moment.
You're done at the moment. Thank you, Andrew. You can put your hand down now. Let's go to Gabe.
Okay. I think that we have to give a lot of credit. The fact that we know that Zwigoff spent 6 years making this documentary, Crumb, and he spent so much time with such dysfunctional people. I almost understand and can identify with his suicidal thoughts after having spent so much time on that kind of thing, and taking what must have probably been just massive amounts of material, and sifting through that material and making a cohesive story out of it. I just have to give a lot of credit to that. I think, while the directing may not have been advising actors on, how they should act in a particular scene or in a particular moment, there was still a lot of directing that went on to create something like Crumb. So I have to give a lot of credit to the effort that went into that. But then again, American Splendor is enjoyable right from the get-go, and you can just see, that just the ordering of the story, the construction of the story, how we're introduced to him at a low point, and we get to see him, change over time, and see him go through ups and downs in his life. I think it's just really. Just the construction of the story in American Splendor is really excellent. It takes us through all the important points of Harvey Picar's life up to that time in his life, and it's really, I don't know, I sense a landslide coming on, because I want to vote for American Splendor as well. As much as I appreciate the effort that happened with Crumb, I just think the directing is more concise and just more solid for American Splendor.
All right. Tom.
Yeah, all right. This was the one round where I was like, I think Crumb might be able to pull this off, because 6 years of gathering footage. I'm working on a corporate project now that I've been collecting footage for a year. And I always have to approach it with a glass of scotch on my desk. So 6 years worth of footage, and obviously he wasn't with him every single day for 6 years, but it's really admirable that he stuck with it. The problem that I have with it is that when I got to the end of Crumb, I felt like I had gone through 6 years worth of footage that had been pieced together, and that the story, while it told a collection of stories, it really kind of lacked a driving narrative through the whole thing. It was more of a thesis about Crumb, and more of a character study, and not really a story with a beginning, middle, and end. There's this vague story about them moving to France and not liking their neighbors at the beginning, and then they decide to flee the continent, which is fine. Right. But it just seemed to lack that story. American Splendor, on the other hand, was much more cohesive. Obviously, there's the beginning, middle, and end, like you're supposed to have, and the part, the little tidbits of directing that I really, really liked. I think if I want to make sure I have this right, and you guys can flame me if you don't think this is right, but at the beginning of the movie, when Harvey's walking down the street, when he leaves the Halloween and he grows up, while he's walking down the street, he's moving across the screen from left to right. And the director made this decision, and I know it was a conscious decision, that he literally turns his life around, and when he's walking his daughter back to the school bus, she actually has them walking in a general direction from right to left, that he's actually going the other way now. And I thought that was a really, really great. And there's tons of little tidbits like that throughout the entire movie. So I'm going to give it to American Splendor because I thought the directing was a little bit more solid, and the narrative was just more disciplined.
Well, I just before we go on to overall and skip Mark,
well, I was just going to say, wait a second.
I just want to say the opening to American Splendor is just, I thought it was great. It's got to be in my top 10, top 20 openings for films, because you have all these great superheroes and then you have Harvey Pekar. And all the superheroes, comic book characters, and Harvey Pekar becomes a comic book character. So it's like, great, and then Harvey. And when he's walking away and they do the jump cut to Paul Giamatti, I loved it. It just set the tone for the entire film, I think.
Agreed.
So, sorry, go ahead, Mark.
I agree basically with everyone's points before now, but just to sort of fight the tide a little bit, I'm going. Wait, I'm going to get closer. Okay,
there you
go. I'm going to make my vote for Crumb. For this.
What?
Yeah, I know.
See, you're just being contrarian. That's all you are. You're just being.
You're being Crumb right now.
American Splendor is just getting too
douchebag.
popular on this podcast. I can't stand it. I can't stand you guys praising it this much. Okay, it's just a movie. Crumb is far superior. And, okay,
go listen to your jazz records.
Okay, and honestly, I agree with everything everyone said up until this point. But looking at it from the angle of if someone was coming with me with two different projects, and one would be follow around Robert Crumb for 6 years, or over like 10 to 12 weeks, you can report to a soundstage where Paul Giamatti is there, and there's craft services and there's lighting and all that stuff. Which project would you like to take on? I'd probably do the American Splendor route 10 times out of 10. Because you never want to break if Crumb's going to go get some coffee and he might run into somebody he knows. You want to keep the cameras rolling. And you have to go through all that blasted footage. So I think, I just think as just a sheer undertaking, Crumb is a greater achievement in that regard. I think it took more work, more dedication from the director, and I agree with Tom. It really is a character study. It really doesn't have a beginning, middle, and end. But I think a lot more elbow grease went into making Crumb than went into making American Splendor.
All right, fair enough. I kind of find myself agreeing with you, Mark.
But as a directing, are you looking at quantity or quality? That's all I'm saying. Would you put a 5-year-old to do a remake of E.T.? Well, no. Now, he may be able to do an awesome thing and have tons and tons of footage, but that doesn't mean that he can make a good film.
I might hire Uwe Ball to remake E.T.
True Good 69.
I want to ask you guys real quick. I mean, back when they shot Crumb, they had to be using film. So...
Oh, yeah.
I want to know how much footage he actually shot. I want to know how much actually went, how many feet, because that's expensive. Back then, that was super expensive.
Plus developing it.
Yeah, do you guys know if it was like, did he shoot on 16 or does anyone know?
35.
Or 35? I mean...
That would have been my guess, but just from the quality of the film,
right.
I would have guessed 35.
I say it's from 1994, so
right.
That would be my guess.
Yeah.
Okay, 35. All right, that's got to be expensive. I should have thought about this before the podcast. I could have maybe tried to look back and find prices for per foot for 35.
It looks like they shot on 16.
Oh, they did shoot on 16.
Yeah.
Huh.
Wow.
Okay, fair enough.
And they printed on 35.
Well, for 16, it looks really good for 16 millimeter because there's not the kind of grain that you normally see with 16 millimeter.
Well,
that's impressive.
The film guys, the film negative guy, the color correctors, and everyone,
right?
They made their money's worth for that probably.
But again, I think that goes back to that quantity over quality is the fact that anybody can sit down. I mean, yes, it's tedious and yes, it sucks, but anybody can sit through feet and feet and feet of 35 millimeter, or 16 millimeter, or even digital, and edit a film together. But I mean, does that make you a good director? That's all I'm saying. I'm just challenging you on that, Mark. That's all I'm saying.
Oh yeah, it's going down. Mark's going for the battle axe. I didn't even know I had a battle axe. Jonathan Demme tried to adapt a film version of American Splendor in the 1980s, but the project never came to fruition as Demme wasn't an established director. And when he was trying to raise funds for the film, Terry Zwigoff encountered Terry Gilliam, who he knew and worked with Robert Crumb in the late 60s. who he knew had worked with Robert Crumb in the late 60s, pardon me. Approaching Gilliam, Zwigoff asked for some help with the budget. Gilliam reached into his pocket, handed over a nickel, and then walked away.
Wow.
Yeah. So apparently Terry Gilliam didn't like Crumb either, or maybe he's just an ass. I don't know. Let's go to our last round overall, and we will start with Mark.
Oh boy. Well, you're gonna find me jumping back here on the American Splendor bandwagon. Again, Crumb was the greater undertaking, but I could see myself revisiting American Splendor over and over again for Giamatti's performance, and I really like the way they brought in the real life characters into the film.
Right.
Although it got a little Inception-esque when what's his name? Picard. Is it Picard?
Yeah, Picard.
Picard is watching Giamatti watch a play about himself. My brain sort of stopped for a minute. Like I had to process that for just a second. But I mean, other than that, I mean, the stuff with Letterman's great. It's a better story. He has, he's full of far less self-loathing, possibly, than Crumb. Who knows? And I don't have my notes in front of me, so I'm kind of babbling. So I'm going to go, again, overall, I'll go with American Splendor.
Fair enough. All right, let's go with Tom.
All right, so 1994, and this is Crumb is a movie that it's really hard to appreciate in 2011 because we are bludgeoned to death with reality TV, okay? With History Channel crap and Discovery Channel stuff, and prime time is pretty much all reality television. So when Crumb came out, it was really something kind of different, and people hadn't really seen a biopic, for lack of a better word, like this. But now that this is kind of the same thing I was saying about Paul Giamatti earlier. Now that we're at this end of it, we look back and Crumb kind of gets lost in the haze, and that it was so groundbreaking at the time, but now looking back on it, it's like maybe that was ground that should not have been broken. But I mean, that being said, we've also there have been some moments of genius of reality television, and we start to see that maybe there could have been a better way to do Crumb and handle Crumb and construct Crumb, and that's not really fair because we have the gift of what is it? 17 years since the movie came out. But at the same time, it needs to be given its credit for being the kind of film that it was. Mm-hmm. That being said, American Splendor, I think, is just a more enjoyable film. I had originally seen it when it came out, and I went out and I bought it. And then we picked these two movies, and I went to go track the movie down again, walking past it on my DVD shelves a couple of times, forgetting that I had owned it. And so I got it. I got the checked out copy home, and I looked up on the shelf. I was like, I already have this, so I put it back in. And for some reason, I'd been avoiding it because I was like, oh, that's that comic cancer film. I don't know if I really want to get into that. And then I put it in and I watch it with this after watching Crumb, and it just became just the sweetest, most, like as I said before, most real movie I'd seen in such a long time. And and it kind of hit me on a personal level with some things that are going on in my life, and I just I think it was just I even have to say it might even be a little underrated, but I'm going to give my overall vote to American Splendor. But I think credit needs to be given to Crumb, that all of this reality TV shit that we're dealing with, I put at the feet of Terry Zwigoff and Robert Crumb.
All right. Gabe.
Yeah, well, I agree with Tom in that respect. It's very interesting to look at a movie like Crumb in respect to modern reality TV. And actually, when I was in school, we talked for a while about things like TV and film as therapy. And I think some of the popularity of modern reality TV is that it's somewhat therapeutic to people. They can watch this stuff and they can see how messed up other people's lives are, whether it's truly that messed up or if it's put on for drama on TV. Either way, it doesn't matter. People watch this and they go, "Oh my God, at least my life isn't that bad." Things might be bad, but it isn't that bad. And, it's the same with watching Crumb. You watch Crumb and you're like, "Oh my God, at least my life is not that bad. At least I am not that messed up." And it was really frightening, and on one level maybe therapeutic. Like, whew, thank God I'm at least somewhat normal. So I think you have to give some credit to that in kind of showing this dysfunction and bringing this dysfunction to light. And maybe it's the kind of thing that people hadn't had a lot of media exposure to at the time. Things like depression and sexual dysfunction. Because Crumb's brother Max was arrested for molestation, and he talked openly about the irresistible urge to pull some girl's shorts down.
Yeah.
And it's like, these are the kinds of things that maybe at the time we didn't have a lot of exposure to. And so I found it really interesting and really compelling from that standpoint. It was disturbing, but also kind of interesting to me. So I have to say that from that point of view, I enjoyed watching it. It was really kind of like shocking on a certain level. Even today, that those people were shocking to me. And then we hit American Splendor, and we had the fabulous acting of Paul Giamatti. We had a nice story about someone who may have been equally as dysfunctional, but had the opportunity to kind of filter through a little bit of editing and a little bit of fiction. But in the end, American Splendor I identified more with American Splendor and the characters in American Splendor a little bit more. I felt a little bit more strongly about Harvey. When he got cancer, I felt really bad for him and his wife. And when they finally adopted their friend's daughter, it made me feel, it was a nice feeling. I felt good about it. And I feel like overall, the experience of watching American Splendor in the end was more enjoyable. Crumb was interesting. American Splendor was enjoyable. And I don't know that we should give added weight to positive feelings, but I'm going to in this instance and say that because American Splendor was so enjoyable, it gets my overall vote as well.
All right. Thanks, Gabe. Andrew,
Yeah.
you get to close it out.
Amazingly enough, I wonder where this is going. I would say overall, and I've seen documentaries before, and if it's whether it's not interesting, all documentaries have their place and they have something to it. I just really felt that Crumb was more of a fantasized reality of who Crumb thought he was as a person. And it felt, as I kind of slipped up earlier, more of a mockumentary than it actually did a documentary. And, and maybe that's that feeling that Gabe was just talking about, that you look at it and go, I'm not that big of a douchebag, thank goodness. But it just had that almost fantasized perspective of who Crumb was. And, again, maybe that was just because there was camera on Crumb and he was working it up a little bit, but it just didn't feel... I don't know. It really felt almost like a mockumentary, like it was fake. And, yes, American Splendor is a narrative, and yes, it is actually planned, and the shots are recorded in a specific way, and audio, and blah, blah, blah. But I felt that I actually connected and learned more about a person through that story than I did anything about Crumb. The most I learned about Crumb was that he's a messed up little man that has a lot of weird people that hang out with him. Yeah, he's a drawing, genius. But with Harvey, I really felt that I knew who Harvey was. I really felt that I got to see his life for what it was and a more realistic approach, and it felt more of a realism of that documentary. And maybe that's, one of the bad things about narratives is that, you can really tell the parts that are important and really push the things that you want people to know about. But I felt that it was more real to me than actually, especially I think it would not have been as good of a movie if Harvey wouldn't have actually been in the film. I really think he really helped bridge that gap in making it. You were, again, like the 3 different instances where Harvey and Paul, and then on stage, and you're seeing these 3 different perspectives all happening at the same time, and it was just so amazing. So my vote is going to be for no, I'm just kidding. For overall American Splendor. So,
all right. Wow. Okay. I'm going to have to set the monkey on this with his adding machine. So while we're doing that, let's go ahead and we will get to our recommendations for this episode. Let's start off with Gabe.
Okay. Well, I have a slightly different kind of recommendation this time. As we mentioned early on in the episode, many of us just got done competing in the 48-hour film project here in Des Moines. And I'm very proud to have competed with this group of great filmmakers. So what I would like to recommend this time around is that our viewers go out and find the fine films that were made here in Des Moines for the 48-hour film project. And I would like to especially point out Mike Keeler's Southsider Studios, with their they actually got to do a sequel, City Cops 2, Sweet Revengeance, which is a great film, excellent work.
You're making me blush.
Of course, also Andrew's Arizona Inc. Studios, Cash on Delivery, which is also another great film. And really, I think we should celebrate, the work that gets done here in Des Moines. There's a lot of great talent here, and I like to think that I'm doing this podcast with a lot of that great talent as well. So,
well, thank you.
Oh, quit.
That's the club talks amongst itself.
I wish I could feel the same. I'm just now, Gabe. Tell them where to find your film. You didn't talk about yours. Tell them where you can find yours.
Yeah, I didn't.
And what the name of it?
Well, if things pan out, you might be able to find it at your nearest Planned Parenthood clinic. Which is one of the weirdest parts of this whole thing for me, is that there was a woman who works for marketing of all things for Planned Parenthood and has approached me about actually playing our film in the clinic.
Oh, that's awesome, Gabe.
Yeah.
Wow.
That is fantastic.
Yeah, so I'm pretty happy about that. And you can also find it on YouTube on our channel, One Genome Short.
And what's the name of it?
It's called Clap, and it's a musical, kind of, I guess. It's got music in it. I don't know how musical the music is, but it's got music. So, no. But yeah, I just wanted to send out a congratulations to you guys on a very successful year and great work.
Thanks. Thank you. In fact, we've actually been contacted by the Des Moines Police Department, and they asked us never to make another film like that. So, 2 good things they haven't. They said Mark is too close to being a real detective, and they can't. In case anyone doesn't know, Mark plays the lead in City Cops and plays the lead in City Cops 2, Sweet Revengeance. So, yeah, a little goes to him for pulling out his inner David Caruso.
Oh, Lord.
So, great. Let's stop sucking each other's you-know-whats, and let's go to Tom for a recommendation.
Hang on, I'm watching Clap. Looks good. It looks good. No, I'm serious. I have it on the computer and pulled up. I have a mini pick. We always talk about this, that, what would have been a really good movie to go up against this? I think it would have been fun to do American Splendor and Ghost World, which is Terry Zweigoff's other comic book film that he did. Yes. Ghost World's a pretty good pick. But I'm just going to throw that up. My real pick is actually not a pick not a movie at all. It's a series that ran, I believe, from 2000 to 2005 that Jon Favreau and Peter Billingsley produced, called Dinner for Five.
I love
and
that show.
The concept behind this show is that Jon Favreau and 4 of his filmmaking friends, actors, directors, whatever, would go out for dinner and they would record it, and they'd put together this, I believe it's like, it's between half an hour and 45 minutes typically, of people just kind of telling stories about making movies and their experience in making movies and how much they hate doing love scenes and funny anecdotes and stuff like that. And I found it to be incredibly educational as well as entertaining, which is a great combination when you're looking for something. So I know that it's available on iTunes. I think it's only like $1.99 an episode if you just want to check one out. Or Netflix streaming has the first season up also. I believe there are 4 or 5 seasons of it, but they're all very good, and it's a really, really great show. A little bit dated. The 2001's obviously it's weird to see them make references to see how talk about movies that never got made because of what happened on September 11th. And in the first episode, Peter Berg talks about his movie called Truck 44, which was a firefighting film that got tossed out after 9/11, and and people talking about, we're growing up in a generation that hasn't experienced war, and within a couple of months of them shooting that, we're still in the same one. And aside from that, it's the stories and stuff are quite timeless. So Dinner for Five with Jon Favreau, check it out.
Just to add to Tom's, he actually sat down and did somewhat of a little interview with Harrison Ford for Cowboys and Aliens, for the release of Cowboys and Aliens. And I think there's like 7 or 8 episodes of it because they had to break it up for YouTube. But you can check that out as well. It's pretty entertaining. Andrew.
I'm gonna pull out of the obscure hat. I'm a big supporter of independent films, and I've had the pleasure of every once in a while you pick up one that you're like, this will be great or it'll be bad, and so my recommendation is Teeth. If you were looking for just an entertaining horror film all in one big, this is a fantastic film. It's an independent. There's nobody in it, but the actors do a great job. It's shot beautifully, and it's just a lot of fun to watch. So if you like, and I guess, do we want a little background?
Yeah, you can give a little synopsis.
Teeth is actually based on, there's an old Greek mythology legend called Vagina Dentata about girls that have teeth growing down there to prevent men from, obviously deflowering them.
I've dated a few girls like that.
Wait. Nope, you're good.
Yeah, I'm good. She's not around. She's at the hospital.
And it's actually, this story is about this young girl that actually has teeth down there, and her growing up. It starts with her very young, and her growing up and going through puberty and actually learning to become a woman and having to deal with this issue. And it sounds bizarre, but I tell you, it is one of those films that you watch and you laugh because it is just so amazingly awesome that you're just like, this is the most crazy stuff ever, and it's funny and it's good time, and there's horror mixed into it, and you love the characters, and it's a great little independent film. Highly recommended.
All right, Mark.
As always, I'm making this up on the fly. It's what I do. I'm going to recommend a podcast, and particularly one episode of this podcast. It's called The Hollywood Saloon. I wouldn't doubt if a lot of you guys listen to this. But specifically, it's the episode from September 15th, 2006. It's titled Star Wars at Home. Oh. And what they did in this episode was they went back and recounted every release of Star Wars on home video, from Betamax to VHS to Laserdisc to DVD, and Blu-ray really hadn't taken off at that point, so they don't go over that. But I remember right, I feel like there was like 28 different incarnations of the original trilogy on various home video formats, and like sometimes the only difference would be like the Leonard Maltin interviews at the beginning, and I mean it's a fun listen. It's an hour and 40 minutes, but you go back and you're like, oh, I own that, and I own that, and that, and that, and you just remember how many times George Lucas has dipped into your pocketbook and asked for just a little bit more, which is just what he's doing here in about a month or so with the Blu-ray releases. And which he will do again in the future with the 3D Blu-ray releases.
And the
So,
3D theater releases. And
Yeah. So it's kind of a fun trip down memory lane if you're like me and have owned countless copies of the Star Wars trilogy. So
It's true.
That's the best one so far. I like that one.
My recommendation is 13 Assassins. And I loved it. It's about a group of assassins come together for a suicide mission to kill an evil lord. And they're actually not assassins, they're samurai. And they're going out to kill the evil brother of a shogun. Because he is, I mean, you find out through the story how heinous his crimes are. He's just an awful guy. It's directed by Takashi Miike. It is only available in Japanese, at least on Netflix streaming. And it does come with subtitles, so that helps. I would start saying who it stars, but I would just butcher their names. So I'm just... Godzilla is not in it. I'll just say that.
Well, I'm out. Forget that.
It is very well done. I really like Takashi Miike, or it probably Miike because it's two eyes there, but I'll say Takashi Miike. I really dig his stuff, and I believe Quentin Tarantino is really good friends with him. So yeah, check it out. 13 Assassins. It's available on Netflix streaming. So, you guys want to know who won, or should we just kind of bypass
I have
that?
a pretty good idea of who it might be.
Yeah. This one was hard to count, though. I kind of ran out of room. All right, here we go.
And the winner by decision is American Splendor.
Your heart kind of skipped a beat there when he paused, didn't it? You were like, "Oh my God, he's going to say Crumb."
How'd you actually get Crumb to do the booing in the crowd? That's amazing.
I
Well, that's
promised
the way
I
the
wouldn't ask
cookie
for an
crumbles.
autograph. Oh,
Boo words.
Was my mic on? I was going to try that out before I said it.
That's okay. He thinks this podcast sucks.
yeah. American Splendor won 15-1. So yeah.
Yes, I picked the one.
Good job.
All right.
Douchebag.
Well,
I'm sorry. I think my mic is supposed to be off.
all right. Let's go ahead and tell the lovely people listening how they can follow you guys or get in contact with you. Let's start with Tom.
Yeah, so last episode I was talking about how we're going to get Oscar Radar off the ground, and I have been poring over the very large batch of potential nominees for the Oscar Best Picture this year, and there's a lot of them. So I did not get OscarRadar.com updated, but it will be done before the next episode, so you can stop by and check it out.
Right on.
And we'll get an early read on who's got a shot at the Best Picture for this year's Oscars. Great. Just an amazing slew of movies coming out, and some directors and actors that had been gone and disappeared for a little while, and some that are making their 15th movie this year.
All right.
So, yep, OscarRadar.com. Thanks.
Gabe.
Yeah, you can find me on Facebook, Gabriel Rowald on Facebook, and then also you can find our 48-hour films on YouTube. Our team name is One Genome Short, and we've got a channel that goes by the same name.
All right. Andrew.
I'm on pretty much every media. You can find me individually on Facebook, Andrew Zumwalt, and then, of course, Arizona Ink Studios has their own Facebook page. AZ Ink Studios is on Twitter. And then, of course, ArizonaInkStudios.com. You can find all of our shorts, a lot of production video that I've done, just some side projects, news about what's going on with the studio, and then, of course, our YouTube channel, which is Arizona Ink Studios, also holds all of our shorts and such. So yeah, you can check. I'm on every media. Every media.
Now, there's actually a film on. Is it still up on the main page, on your main page that I was in?
West Side Jedi.
Yeah, West Side Jedi.
That has been replaced by Cash on Delivery.
Oh.
But West Side Jedi will be actually posted very soon to both, obviously, YouTube, the studio's website, and then, of course, once it gets entered into Atom Films, letting everyone know so they can come out and vote.
Just in case no one knows, tell them what West Side Jedi is.
West Side Jedi is actually a Star Wars fan film that was done for the Adam Film Star Wars fan competition. And it is actually a mix between West Side Story and Star Wars. And we kind of put them together, and we made a Star Wars musical that involves two gangs, the Jedi and the Sith. And let me tell you, it still makes me laugh. And Mike was in it, and quite a few other people, and it was a big cast. Great
How
shooting.
long did you work on it?
It took me about 2 years to do all the visual effects, get all the editing, and it's about a 22-minute mid. Looks fantastic. I'm very happy with it. I think everyone else was. So, yeah, you should. Once that gets up, we'll definitely. I'll let Mike know, and he can be like, "Hey, Bob."
Keep your eye on it.
That's right.
Keep checking. You should be going there.
And I have to add that the visual effects are pretty awesome. Actually, there's some really cool scenes in there with all those visual effects.
Thank you. Yeah. But yeah, you can definitely go out to ArizonaStudios.com and check out all my news, because I keep that I have a blog basically that updates any projects I'm working on, anything we post. So definitely, if you want to know more about any of the films.
There you go. All right,
I'm
Mark?
done now.
Okay, put your hand down.
I'm Jeremy Bentham 42 on Twitter.
No, you're not. You're Mark.
No, but I'm Jeremy Bentham 42 is my handle.
Okay.
And that's as awesome as I get.
That's as awesome as you get. All right.
I have to follow Mark right now.
We would appreciate it if you guys could leave us a review on iTunes or whatever podcasting service you use. That's what helps people find us. That's how we get new listeners. Tell your friends. Tell your family. Tell your enemies. They might actually learn to love you if you tell them about us. You can contact us at cinesmack@gmail.com. You can follow us on Twitter and Facebook. Just search Cinesmack. And you can check out Southsider Studios at southsiderstudios.com. And like everyone said, on YouTube, just search Southsider Studios. You can find all of our films. And City Cops should be up sometime this weekend, which we're recording on what, the 9th? Is today 9th or the 10th? It is the 10th. So it should be up like on the 14th. Let's say that. The next episode, join us as we welcome Sam back from his walkabout with quite possibly the two worst films of all time. Troll 2 versus Birdemic. This is going to be a blast, folks. So join us next time. But for Mark, Gabe, Andrew, Tom, and myself, thanks for listening.
Oh, what movie could possibly be worth driving 260 miles round trip for?
It's a new film called Revenge of the Nerds. It's about a group of nerd college students who are being picked on all the time by the jocks. So they decide to take revenge.
So what you're saying is you identify with those nerds?
Yes, I consider myself a nerd, and this movie has uplifted me. There's this one scene where a nerd grabs the microphone during a pep rally and announces that he is a nerd and that he is proud of it and stands up for the rights of other nerds.
Right on.
Then he asks all the kids at the pep rally who think they are nerds to come forward. So nearly everyone in the place does. That's the way the movie ends.
So the nerds won, huh?
Yes.
All right. Wow. Well, you got this movie and I'm getting hitched. We both had a good month, huh?
Right.
Yeah.
This has been a test of the Southsider Studios podcast system. This was only a test. If this were a true lack of entertainment, your head would explode. Go to iTunes and subscribe to our feed. Just search Southsider Studios.